Did Real just pull an EXP move and introduce something that definitely muddies and potentially reduces revenue share payouts? Well, here's the thing, numbers don't lie. And today we're going to dive deep into Real Brokerage's latest earnings call. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time and uncover what might not be clear or obvious about the changes they made to their revenue share program. I started digging a while back when a top revenue share advocate, someone who's built a massive downline there, suddenly left Real Brokerage. Leaving any brokerage is tough, but walking away from a huge downline, that's a move that makes you stop and you gotta ask why. So I started doing a little digging and I started with the earnings call, and it made a lot of sense when I started digging in. So at first glance, Real's report looks strong, and it is. Revenue is up 93%. Agent count up 77%. Transactions up 81%. But if everything is going so well, why is revenue share lagging behind? Now let's break that down because that's not super obvious when you just listen to the call, right? They're super excited about a lot of things, rightfully so. But what about revenue share? So here's the cut. It's kind of hidden in plain sight. Now, Real paid out $9.5 million in revenue share last quarter. That's up 39% from that same time last year. That's pretty good. But wait, here's the thing. Revenue, not revenue share, revenue jumped 93% in that same period. See the problem? Revenue share isn't keeping up. Here's where it really gets interesting, okay? Michelle Ressler, Real CFO, actually admitted it on the earnings call. And it's not like a terrible bad thing. She said this is a quote, as a percentage of revenue share declined to 2.7% in Q4 2024 from 3.8% in Q4 of 2023, in part due to revenue share model changes we've implemented last year. Translation? They tweaked the model to pay out less as a percentage in revenue share. So let's do the math. All right, a drop from 3.8% of revenue share to 2.7% of revenue is a 29% decrease in payout rate. That means that agents are earning nearly a third less in revenue share relative to Real's growing revenue. Does that sound familiar? Well, if so, EXP actually had something a while back called a buffer years ago. Now, to be fair, EXP was called out on some of that stuff by top revenue share earners. At least that's what I've heard. And EXP ended up doing what I think is the right thing and getting rid of that buffer and rolling out a more transparent plan with revenue share 2.0. Now, it had an impact, but I think it was mostly a move to be more transparent. At least that's what I can tell. All right. So when we start looking at that, you got to scratch your head and go, okay, why is that happening? How does that math make sense? The changes must have dictated that as they grow in agent count and as they grow in revenue, share becomes a smaller portion of that. And it's actually built into the model based on the most recent changes. Now, there's also some other things that happen that some people are griping about. I don't think they're huge, but they're worth talking about since I'm bringing up the point. So here's some things, some changes that they made to fees, caps, and stocks and stock incentives, right? They raised some costs on some agents, right? In the US, transaction fees increased from 30 to 40. Okay, Isaac, it's only $10. Chill out. Right. Here's something that's interesting. Canadian cap increased from 12,000 Canadian dollars to 15,000 Canadian dollars. That is a 25% increase in their cap. Now, here's the other thing. RSU stock bonuses were actually slashed by 25%. So cutting that bonus by 25%, that's a big deal for a lot of people because they see that as a massive upside to being at Real. So when revenue share is reduced by 30%, right, or as a proportion of revenue, and stock bonuses are reduced by 25%, that's a big deal. And keep in mind, this isn't speculation. This is all there in the earnings call. You can go check it out on Seeking Alpha and read through that and do the math yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go ahead and check that out. But it's not speculation, okay? And here's the thing. When I was talking with somebody that's there, and we were talking about this and we really started digging into it, this is what they told me. They said, it kind of feels like they changed the game on us mid-game, right? Because here's what it looks like in real life. When you recruit agents, you go thinking that the revenue share model is going to stay the same. And you want them to really stay focused on building it that way, right? Now, when stock bonuses shrink, that actually makes retention harder, right? Which further hurts your revenue share. Higher fees, again, they're only $10, but higher caps, that cuts into agent take home income. So, who really wins in that? Because again, that's not a retention tool. That's something that works against retention. Now, here's the thing, when agents are making less money from revenue share and stock, that's a big issue. And here's the thing, Real has had record revenue growth, but it isn't making real profits. Their net income is actually heading towards zero over time. Let me pose something out for you. Aggressive revenue share to attract agents, big stock incentives to drive loyalty and keep people there. Then you cut those benefits once you've scaled. Does that sound familiar? Real is doing it right now. That's what EXP did, right? I'm not knocking these companies. I'm not saying they're not good. What I'm saying is that they start off with these wildly awesome revenue share programs, stock programs. And then as they scale out, they have to pull back on those things. They have to claw back on those things in order to stay sustainable. So if you go back and watch probably the first video I ever made about LPT, one of the main things that I pointed out was that I was in this for the long run and I wanted a model that wasn't going to change over time and would remain sustainable. So where EXP is heading, or is now where Real is heading in terms of revenue share, that's where LPT just started. They didn't want these buffer systems, right? So I'm not telling you go join LPT, although I am totally telling you that. What I am saying is that these companies, whatever, as they scale, the incentives have to shrink in order for them to remain sustainable. And to me, I'm not a big fan of that. So here's my final thoughts. And you got to start thinking, what should agents do, right? So what's next? If you're at Real, you need to ask yourself, is the revenue share model still worth it? Are they going to continue to trend downward? Is there other stuff that makes them unsustainable that turns around and they have to pull out from underneath the increased fees or anything like that? That I don't know. That's all speculation, right? But if they cut it once, would they cut it again? I don't know. Here's the other thing. Are you truly getting the best deal as an agent? I don't know. There's a lot of people that are huge advocates for Real. Some of my really good friends, and I don't mind it at all. But what I do need to talk about is that when things like this happen, somebody's got to bring it up and question it. So I figured I'd do that in this video. Again, I think as a brokerage, they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. People change models all the time. It happens to the best of us. No one goes in it with any intent to be deceitful, by no means. But that doesn't change the fact that, hey, the game's been changed, right? The rules were changed. The policy was changed. And that has a negative impact on some of the people that really care about it. So at the end of the day, I now, at least just based on pure opinion, this is my opinion, no one else's, I feel very confident as to why I know why that big revenue share person, that big producer that left Real, think they saw the writing on the wall. So anyways, you might be mad at me for this video. You might love me for this video. Doesn't really matter. Drop a comment and let me know how much you hate this video, how much you love it, or how much you don't care about any of this. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm just here to give you the best, most relevant information on all things real estate, including earnings calls, right? I love looking at them. You should take some time and look at this one too. Maybe you'll find some of the same stuff I did. Until next time, keep crushing it in real estate.